Images of Australian children have been found in a data set used to train AI. They're publicly available without the permission of the children or their families and include personal information such as names, locations and ages. The photos were uncovered by researchers from Human Rights Watch. National Technology reporter Ange Lavoie-Pierre joins me now from Parliament House in Canberra. Ange, can you tell us about what this investigation found?
Yeah, so this is extraordinary, really. Human Rights Watch, as you said, we're looking at this data set online. It's a free data set. It's called Lion 5B. It's one of the largest in the world, and it contains 5.85 billion image and caption pairs, if you can believe that. And what they did is they took a little sample, like 5,000 or 6,000 images, and went through that. Now, this is everything on the web. Pretty much everything imaginable, every kind of image out there. And they were wanting to see if there were images of Australian children in there, and there were. They found 190 just in that sample alone, which, you know, we can't know how representative that is, but it suggests that there are a great deal more within that 5.85 billion large data set. And yeah, a lot of these images were pretty intimate in nature. They seemed like images that were not intended for the public view. They were found sometimes on public social media and places that we sort of understand at this point are maybe open season, whether that's right or wrong. But they also came from places like schools' websites or a family photographer's marketing page. And you know, we don't necessarily see those images easily findable on search, for example. So yeah, I spoke to the researcher Hai-Jun Hung about what she found and I guess the nature of some of those images.
These images really encompass the entirety of childhood. It was images of babies being born at the hospital, still covered in amniotic fluid and, you know, connected by their mother to their mother by an umbilical cord, to, you know, images from home videos of kids dancing in diapers or going to kindergarten, or, you know, teens celebrating Schoolies Week. It was everything between the extremes. And these images are really posted by the kids or friends and families, even schools, to celebrate these moments and just to share, you know, private moments with friends and family. Certainly not to be used by AI systems for purposes that were completely beyond their control.
And such personal photos, what does AI want from them?
Well, luckily, AI doesn't want anything of its own volition just yet, but its makers really want it to learn about the world and learn how to make images, learn how to make hyper-realistic synthetic imagery, and we are seeing that capability come through. Another important thing to remember about this is that once AI has been trained on a data set like Lion 5B, it doesn't forget what it's seen. So even if Lion, the company behind Lion 5B, removes images that are within it, and Human Rights Watch asked them to remove those 190 images, they did so. It doesn't change that AI has been trained on that data and then won't forget it.
What are the risks here for children?
Well, apart from, I suppose, the fact of their exposure in the first place, there is a risk associated with, I mean, it's an emerging field, but there's research into these AI models basically being able to reproduce some of their training data. So, you know, we see this happening with large language models, with chatbots all the time. You know, they'll spit out some post from Reddit or from social media that, you know, from many, many years ago that were part of its data set. Well, it turns out the same thing can happen with images, with these image generators. And the implications there, when you consider that you've got the faces of Australian children included without their consent or their knowledge, that, you know, the models could theoretically, although we don't have reports of this happening, we know that they could reproduce fragments or significant parts of those source images in who knows what context.
And with no legal protections for children's personal data in Australia, what needs to be done in this space?
Yeah, the protection look, there is some theoretical protection under the Australian Privacy Act, but it hasn't been updated in a long time. What we heard in putting together this story is that it's pretty rare to see any kind of regulatory enforcement or civil action around this because those laws are quite out of date, which is why the government is expected to unveil proposed changes to the Privacy Act next month. So we actually spoke to Professor Edward Santow, who's a former Human Rights Commissioner and the current director at the Human Technology Institute at UTS, about this.
The Privacy Act, which was drafted largely before the internet was even created a couple of decades ago, needs to be modernised. The federal government, the Attorney General, has committed to introducing major amendments to the Privacy Act to modernise it, to bring it into the 21st century and to address precisely these sorts of problems. And that couldn't be more urgent.
That was Ed Santow there, and talking about those protections that the government's contemplating, but also possibly some specific protections to be put in place for children online.
National Technology reporter Ange Lavoie-Pierre, thank you.